that the biggest thing they're working on right now, as you can imagine, is unemployment claims, and helping people with unemployment. But they also do different benefits, Medicaid, Medicare, SSI, and they don't usually assist people just applying for the benefits. They help people if there's some sort of dispute about their benefits, like they thought they should have been getting more food stamps or that kind of thing. We do reentry, CQEs, record sealing, expungements, particularly help seniors with advanced directives and POAs and some nursing home debt issues. And we have a tax team that, again, they don't usually assist people in filing taxes, but they assist people with disputes that they have with the IRS. And then we also specifically help some. So it's sort of just a general overview of what the attorneys at Legal Aid do. And we have I think we have about 45 attorneys, maybe a little bit fewer than that, but we're in the Columbus office. We're located in German Village area, just a few blocks south of Schiller Park. And so we cover Franklin County and Madison County, and we have another office that covers Marion County, Delaware, and Union. But the majority of our clients are all from Franklin, as you can imagine. It's the biggest percentage of people living here. So this is just a few topics I thought people might be interested in about what's kind of current and relevant happening right now. Some stimulus checks and scam information, sort of what's going on with the courts, dealing with debt, some basics about unemployment compensation, and some emergency resources. Okay, so, since the government sent out the stimulus checks, it also brought out a lot of criminals trying to take the stimulus checks from people. So we just really want people to be very careful and aware that the real IRS will not call you, email you, or text you for your bank account information. The stimulus checks were just automatic based on the bank account information. You had to go affirmatively give them your bank account information on a website, and we really want anyone that's giving any information to be very careful what websites they're on too. Make sure it says .gov and that kind of thing, because there's lots of copycat websites, where people are just trying to steal information. So, the federal and state government was not offsetting stimulus checks to repay government debts. And the one exception to that is child support. You can never get away from the child support. If you did have a judgment against you from a creditor, they might have tried to take your stimulus checks. And Legal Aid wants to hear about that. Hopefully everyone has gotten their stimulus check and this is no longer a current fear, but just in case, or in case we get another round of them. So there are other scams out there, whenever there's crises and things like that, scammers really try to profit off of people. So there's misleading consumer products. There are no current at-home COVID-19 tests, cures, or vaccines that are approved, FDA approved. There are a lot of people, trying to commit identity theft right now. And there's lots of scams about that with calls and that kind of thing. This also another big one we've heard about is people calling to say your social security number is no longer good. And that doesn't happen. Your social security number doesn't expire. So don't ever give anybody out any identifying information over the phone. There also are a lot of charity scams, unfortunately. So just, do some research into what, if you do want to give back to some of the charities that are relevant right now, do some research just to make sure you are, it's a legitimate thing. Okay, so just a little update on the courts. For April, so it's all very county specific in Ohio. So it depends on what county court you're in about whether they're going forward and to what degree and whether you have to show up in person or whether it's going to be over the phone. Those are all very county specific. The in-person in Franklin County, in Franklin County, the in-person eviction hearings resumed in June, and they resumed in the convention center. So they've been evicting about 100, they've called 100 cases a day for eviction court since June 1. So that's been pretty serious for legal aid and for our clients. But the other thing that's restarted is wage garnishments have started going through again. And I saw a question, if someone did not receive their stimulus, you could call our office for help on navigating that. So if you were waiting and didn't get it or didn't get, you can call our office, and our tax team is currently busy helping people try to get their stimulus payments, figure out where they went and that kind of thing. The other thing that was paused for a little bit was wage garnishments in Franklin County, but those have started back up again. And they never stopped garnishments that had already gone through, but they stopped having new ones go through. But now they've started having new ones go through again too. So all those things are back to normal, unfortunately, and we're seeing a lot of people have some of these issues. And bankruptcy court proceedings are all over the phone. So it just depends on the court. If you do have a court issue of any kind, you're going to really want to figure out whether it's remote or whether it's in person, and it's just going to be very specific to what the issue is. So one of the things that we help people with, I mentioned in the beginning that I primarily do bankruptcy, and so one of the clients that we prioritize are people with large wage garnishments, because our wage garnishment law in Ohio is terrible, and creditors can take 25% of your wages no matter how many people are in your family. So they can take, someone that has an income that's making about $1,300 a month and they have 3 kids. The creditor doesn't care. They can still take 25%. So those clients are some clients that we prioritize for bankruptcy filing, to stop those wage garnishments, because we understand, especially right now, this is the 25% is incredibly debilitating for people and families. Okay, another little update on utilities, because for a while, utility shutoffs were frozen and they weren't happening. So even if you were paying your electric or gas bill, they still weren't disconnecting people. But now they are starting to disconnecting people again. So, one thing that has been confusing is a lot, like AEP has never stopped sending disconnection notices. So I'm worried that people have been getting those disconnect notices, but they haven't been being shut off because there's been a stay. But all of a sudden in September, they're going to shut off. So it's going to be, the notice is going to be for real this time, and people aren't going to realize it. So that, if anyone thinks they're falling behind in their utilities, now is the time to sort that through, and figure out the best option, because there are some repayment options right now available. There's something that the Breathing Association and Impact are doing called the Summer Crisis Program, where you can get some money to go towards a bill, to stop a disconnect or something like that. So what we do know is the Columbia Gas has said they're going to start shutting people off in August, and AEP has said they're going to start shutting people off in September, but that hasn't been finalized. And there's no date for water shutoffs yet. So that's kind of our utility update in Columbus. I pay very close attention to this, because another big priority of our bankruptcy clients are people with large utility balances. Because if someone has been on the PIP program for a long time, they may have a large balance. And if they're not able to pay it over the last few months, they might be in trouble. And if there's no other options, the Summer Crisis Program doesn't cover, it's not enough money, then bankruptcy is also a good option, because it discharges that. And as soon as you file, they have to turn back on your lights or gas, or they they're not allowed to turn them off if they haven't been shut off yet. So it's a good tool. And I've been watching this closely because I fear we're going to have a large demand right when this happens. So I've been trying to gear us up and get ready for it. We can only do so much, but I'm very worried people are going to call with a super short turnarounds on this because they've been getting those disconnect notices, but it hasn't been real. Now it's going to be real. So that's sort of a warning about that. You know, if you're talking to anyone about those issues, those are, that is something that's going to happen right now. So another thing, if you're kind of dealing with different debts, and something that I really recommend in life for everybody to do is to regularly pull up your credit reports. And right now, because of COVID-19, the major 3 credit bureaus are letting people pull one per week for free. That seems, I'm not pulling them up that regularly, but if you wanted to, you could do it every single week. But I do recommend keeping track of what's on there, because a lot of times there are mistakes on your credit report and everybody else is looking at your credit report. So you want to, and you're the only one that, can tell if there's a mistake, and you're the only one that's going to really care a lot about it. So that's, I recommend, you can pull them for free on something called annualcreditreport.com. You can pull it online, or you can pull it, you can request it by mail. And that's the best place I recommend. I know like Credit Karma and things have it available, but that Credit Karma kind of puts them all together, all 3 credit reports, and it's sort of a little harder to navigate, because if you do find something wrong on maybe only one, like Experian has an error, then you want to send a dispute letter to Experian and say, this is incorrect. But like Credit Karma, if they're all mixed together, you can't tell exactly what, where the error is. And sometimes, sometimes the errors are, they say you owe money that you don't owe, but sometimes the errors are also just identifying information that's wrong in there. And so you don't want to get, somebody else's Social Security debts on your credit report or anything like that. And if there's things that are incorrect, you have a right to try and dispute them. And they have to respond to you. They have to look into it. So, I always recommend you send something in writing to the creditor and the reporting bureau, and you keep track, a copy of what you send, you keep track of the date, and you send it with the receipt so that they got it, and then they have to look into it. So I just, I really recommend, you somewhat regularly, maybe not weekly, but pull these credit reports so that you know what's out there, and what people are saying about you, because whenever you apply for rent or a new landlord or anything like that, they're going to be polling them. So you don't want there to be inaccuracies. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this too, but if people are dealing with debt, bankruptcy can be a powerful tool, because as soon as you file, everybody has to pause and not make any more efforts to collect from you. So that means the wage garnishment has to pause, the utility shutoff has to pause, lawsuits have to pause. But if you're facing an eviction or a foreclosure, Chapter 7 bankruptcy is not really a long-term solution. It gives you a little bit more time, but it doesn't also let you keep the house for free. So the other thing we look at, or we talk about at Legal Aid, are people that have a license suspension. So you could have your license suspended for a number of reasons, some of which bankruptcy can help. Bankruptcy is all about the money. So if you had an accident and you owe an insurance company 20 grand, or your daughter had an accident in your car and you owe an insurance company 20 grand, then that amount of money could be discharged in a bankruptcy. But if it's suspended because you have too many points on your license, or driving infractions, or OVIs, or child support, bankruptcy doesn't help those kinds of things. So it can be a powerful tool to get your license back. And we recognize, in Columbus, having a valid driver's license is an important step to gainful employment and everything like that with our with our city. So some of the things bankruptcy cannot accomplish is it cannot discharge. I get these questions a lot. It cannot discharge student loans. If you do have student loans, and they're federal student loans, there are some repayment options outside of bankruptcy that are probably the best option. If you just owe a school, like you didn't withdraw appropriately and you owe tuition, that could possibly be discharged, but the student loans are generally not going to be. Child support, domestic support obligations, not dischargeable. Certain taxes are generally not dischargeable. Most taxes that you owe will not be. But if you owed taxes for if you owed old income taxes from a year you filed on time, that could be dischargeable. But we don't see that come up very much because the IRS is very good at collecting. So they've been, if someone had a 5-year-old tax debt and they filed every year on time, chances are the IRS has taken their tax refund since then to repay it. But it could happen. Liens on real estate and debts that were based on fraudulent actions. So we don't see that too much, but if you had a debt, a creditor could challenge it. So a creditor could say, like, say you took out a big store credit card, like a Target credit card, and then you just bought a bunch of electronics, and then you filed bankruptcy the next week. The Target might say, like, wait, you said, you misrepresented yourself when you took out this card. You never intended to repay it. So they can challenge individual debts, but this hasn't happened to me very often. Whoops, I don't know how that happened. So that doesn't happen very often. So yeah, so if you or someone is facing one of these issues, they should definitely call our office. We have a few different bankruptcy programs available. We represent clients directly. We have pro bono attorneys that represent clients in bankruptcies. And we also have a reduced fee referral program where we can refer clients to private attorneys that cost less than they normally cost. So I am thinking, our intake calls haven't been too crazy, and they dropped off quite a bit in like April and May. But I am thinking with the courts coming back and utility shutoffs coming back and evictions coming back, I do think we're going to get more and more bankruptcy calls. But so, always keep that in mind if you or someone needs these services. And I think people don't necessarily think about bankruptcy with utilities in particular. They don't think about that as a solution to keep their lights on and their housing stabilized, but it is a great solution. So if, someone can't afford that, and, even if they owe $4,000 and that's the only thing they owe, if someone, $4,000 for some people might as well be, $40,000. So if it's you're not gonna get out of it, and you need we really, really try to prioritize housing stability and utilities. You need electricity. Right now, we are especially thinking about this in the context of remote learning. And we're trying to figure out whether we can do any advocacy on that front, because if kids are going to be home, learning from home in the fall for school and they don't have electricity, that seems like a very elementary issue. So we're trying to, work on that front of advocacy, because you are guaranteed, you have different guarantees about an education. And so if you don't have any electricity, that's not going to be possible. So, these are my concerns for the fall, and doing bankruptcy at Legal Aid. So hopefully you guys can spread any word, or anyone you work with, that we can help people in these issues.
Very valid concerns, Melissa. Very valid. Scary when you think of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, AEP was, I had a few clients call this week that got the Columbia Gas shutoffs. That's because Columbia Gas is the only one. Columbia Gas has finalized their plan and is definitely shutting people off in August. AEP's hasn't finalized yet, but they would like to shut people off in September. So it's going to be, I think there's going to be a big rush of people with really unstable housing situations.
There is a question in the chat concerning use cell phones.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Question, use cell phone.
I can help. Used the cell phone carrier back in either 2009, it could have been even earlier than that, 2010. It's been a long, long time ago. Recently saw a credit report that said they were trying to collect it from me, but it was more recent, in either 2018 or 2019. And I don't recall it. It's probably a dispute or something like that. But I was just wondering, why would they put that on my credit report 10 years later? Is that something to dispute? Or?
Yeah, I mean, you could dispute it. The problem is what people do is they sell debt.
Right.
So that could be what they've done. But there is a statute of limitations of when things should be falling off for a credit report. And I think it's 8 years. So if this is something that, is a debt longer ago than 8 years, you can dispute it on that front too. Even if it's a new person collecting, you can say, hey, this debt is over 8 years old. We haven't had any action on it. I'm disputing it, show me the validity of it. Because chances are these debt buyers and debt collectors with these old debts, they cannot prove it.
Okay. Thank you. Can I ask one more question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys help with probate?
No, we don't specifically have a probate department. We have, we could possibly answer some basic questions about it, but we don't generally represent people walking through that process.
I wouldn't mind the basic questions. I need to understand the process. I have consulted an attorney, and I'm waiting for another one to get back to me, but time is of the essence. So I just want to understand the process of what our rights are, etc. So if that's something you can help with, that would be great. Just waiting for people to get back to me when they can.
Yeah, so I can see if we have a I can see if we have a flyer and ask my coworker that does more in the wills and probate and advanced directives section. If you want to send me an email, we could, I can give out just legal information to anyone. But for specific advice, we just have to make sure you go through our qualify for legal aid's program or services.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions about what's going on in the courts and the debt collectors right now?
Oh, I wanted to also offer, I don't know if you said it and I missed you saying it, but coming in September, I think that I got a student loan notice, and the student loans are going to start coming back up again. They gave us a free.
Is that up? I didn't realize that was up. I'll have to look at that. Like I know you haven't had to pay and it hasn't been hurting you.
Right.
Yeah, that is an issue for people. I'll ask my coworker if the forbearance period is over for that.
Not until September, but it's coming up.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that is a big thing to keep in mind. And it's just so hard because it's not like everyone's doing a lot better. So it's a tough time. And the eviction court is just filled with people that can't afford their rent because of the pandemic. There's our lawyers are there to try and make sure everyone's rights are protected and bring up defenses when they have them, but it's just a lot of people that can't afford it right now. And so we're also hoping that the governor will pass out more money for helping with rent relief and utility relief. So we're hoping, we've been pushing him because there's a lot of there's a lot of CARES Act money from the federal government that's just sitting in the Ohio government's pool that hasn't been distributed. So we're trying to make a big argument to help with more rent relief and utility relief and things like that for people.
Thank you for that. Can I ask another question, Ms. Melissa?
So that's another.
I know that you have Impact, and it used to be Urban League distributing those funds. Do you guys have anybody else that would be eligible to distribute those funds? There's been challenges with those two organizations.
I'm not sure what the status of Urban League is, but we direct people to Impact and the Breathing Association.
They can help with the Breathing Association can help with the evictions?
They don't represent clients, but they have rent relief and utility relief money funds.
Utility, I didn't know they had rent. I just didn't have a good experience with Impact, and it ended up snowballing on me, and as a result, I have experienced the eviction process twice, unfortunately, with these guys, with Impact. I guess I was told to give them another chance. They weren't down there when I went. They were moving when I was down there at the convention center, so I haven't been back to see them, but I just was hoping you had another body that would be eligible to.
Yeah, and it's tough. I don't, they're theoretically passing out rent relief. The other thing is PRC. They had emergency PRC, but I think they have another round of PRC money that can go for rent. But yeah, Impact and the Breathing Association both have the same utility summer crisis program. And usually that's only, the crisis programs in the past have only been like, you can stop your lights from being shut off if you pay $175. So that's all it was. It kind of prolonged the inevitable. If you just owed more than that, it just sort of prolonged the inevitable. But now, due to the COVID-19, the summer crisis program at least will give out $500 if it's a PUCO regulated utility, and $800 if it isn't, for gas and electric. So that's a little bit better. And so that's a little bit better. So we're hoping people can access that. I hate to file someone's, filing bankruptcy is a really big, like a big tool, and you can only do it every 8 years. So you don't want to do it, you want to time it right. So I'm hoping, if people can kind of get their utilities worked out with these programs, it would be so much better to save it up, because I'm sure people are going to have some debt issues in the next year. So that's kind of what we've been thinking. I don't always follow what the Urban League, I'm not clear on what kind of relief and funds they are giving out right now.
Well, the Urban League was given a big pool thanks to two other persons on this chat, or this organization, Dress for Success. I was able to check it out, and I applied, but they ran out of money really early, so I haven't bothered them. It's just for me, it's more of processing. It's my personal bias, if I can call it that, is both of those organizations need a undercover boss experience. So fine tune and really truly see how they are helping proactively or not helping proactively. So that's just my personal bias.
I've heard from clients about very long lines and struggles to get through with Impact. Definitely. I think they're at, you mentioned the eviction. I think they are often at the eviction court. But yeah, and I know the PRC got like $15 million or something, and it was gone in like 2 days. So things are fairly tough for people right now.
But the courts, even though things are tough, and thank you for acknowledging that, it seems like even with the eviction process, it was just business as usual. It wasn't embracing, hey, we're in a different time period, the economy is different, the results are different. You got people who really want to pay. You do have people who don't really want to pay too. But it's like it's business as usual, and there was no, it's like get out in 3 days or get out in 5 days. There was no embracing the current reality of our nation.
I know, yeah. And it's been really hard. It's really hard to handle it. I understand that. And it's really hard for our attorneys because the landlord attorneys aren't being any more congenial. They're being as aggressive and, you know, as aggressive as always. They're not working with us or with our clients any more than they were before. And it's really, really disappointing.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. So I know I couldn't do the eviction court every day. I like to solve people's problems by filing a bankruptcy and keeping their lights on. But it's tough. So one of the other things that we talk to some people come to my office and say they want to file a bankruptcy, but they don't really actually need to because they don't have anything that anyone can take. So like I mentioned, some of those emergency reasons you'd file, wage garnishment, something like that. But if you just have Social Security or disability, that is protected from creditor collection, regular creditors. So unless you give someone your Social Security, they are not allowed to take it from you. Even if they sue you in court and get a judgment against you, they're not allowed to take those benefits. I say regular creditors because the federal government can sometimes take those benefits if you owe an IRS bill or a student loan. But generally those are protected from regular creditors. And so, you know, maybe I talk to some people in their little apartments and they're not gonna, you know, they're retired, they just have a very fixed income, nothing's gonna change in their future, and they just want credit calls to stop. We have a program where we write letters to their creditors, and anyone can do this. Everyone, if a debt collector gets something in writing that says, do not call me, then they have to listen. So anyone can do this. You don't have to be elderly on Social Security. Those are just the people we help with this process because it's unlikely their situation is going to change, but anyone can do it. So you always have the right, and a real debt collector knows these rules. So we sometimes, you know, we have great luck getting peace of mind for these clients without going through the whole bankruptcy process, because they don't really need to file a bankruptcy, but they want these calls to stop. So, you know, if anyone you know is receiving a lot of debt collection calls that fits the situation, let them know to call us. And also, anyone can send a cease and desist letter. It doesn't have the same power if you just say it on the phone to a debt collector, stop calling me. That doesn't raise to the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. It has to be in writing. So that's another program we have for clients that are long-term uncollectible. We used to have a clinic in our office every other month, but since COVID-19, we've stopped that. And I'm not sure when we're going to go back to that because it was a clinic focused on elderly and disabled clients. So we're not going to try and get rooms full of those people together for a while, I think. But we're still sending the letters out, helping people pull up their credit reports and talking to them about their debt collection calls. So, okay. So I mentioned before, unemployment compensation issues are big right now. And our office is available. We have pro bono attorneys and many attorneys that are helping people navigate the unemployment compensation system. So if you're struggling with putting a claim in, you know, and you think you deserve one, then you can definitely give us a call for assistance with that. And I think our services range from just giving people advice on the phone to representing people fully in hearings. But a lot of it, I think, is giving advice on the steps and the process and what to expect. I know this is kind of covering a random assortment of things, but I was trying to think of what's relevant right now for people. But yeah, I mentioned some of the emergency resources before. The PRC benefits if there's children in the home. And I don't think there's any more emergency. I mentioned the one that was like 15 million went away in like 3 days or 2 days. I don't think they've had another round of that yet. but hopefully, hopefully the governor will distribute the care funds and to help people that are very low income and struggling with rent and utilities and that kind of thing. So I'm hoping that more relief will come in that front. And, there may be another stimulus package as well to expect with the federal government, but it does not sound like they have anything concluded right now. It doesn't sound like they're in agreement, the federal government. So I don't have any new news to report on that front, but hopefully that will come. And, if you had any stimulus problems before, like they didn't have your updated bank account, or, another issue is if someone was receiving SSI or VA benefits, the federal government, and they had kids, the federal government had no way of knowing whether to give you that extra kid amount, I think 500 for a kid. So that was something you had to file for affirmatively. So that's something to keep in mind, going forward. Don't let your stimulus get stolen, and affirmatively input those kinds of informations if that happens, if we get another stimulus. Okay, and this is just some info on our website. We have a COVID-19 info page that we're working really hard to keep up to date with for legal information. And our intake, you can call us or apply online for our services. We are not accepting walk-ins right now. Our lobby is closed. And I don't know when they'll restart accepting walk-ins, but it's best to do call or email because much of the office is still working remotely, and we're not kind of rushing back. But we're full force ahead representing clients in court and everything like that, and we have been throughout this whole time. So does anyone have any questions for me about debts or legal aid or anything like that? Was this info helpful in this context and kind of this array of things? Because I sort of just threw things on there.
Yes, it is helpful just to understand the Legal Aid Society is available to us and what your particular specialties are for us. Thank you very much, Melissa.
Oh, good. I'm glad. It's a new world where we're not having in-person presentations and community meetings, so we're trying to figure out what's the best way of giving people information and what's helpful. So I'm glad.
Yes, it's been helpful, I think, for all of us. I think we'll all leave the room with something that we can share with another sister in our life, because we're all dealing with something, right? And we got to support each other through this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a tough time.
It really is.
And I know one of the things we have been working a lot on the school issue too, and access. So I know some people are having, I think education in schools are on a lot of people's minds with parents, but everything, we need our housing, we need everything intact. And I think we're going to have a very serious homeless crisis coming up, and it's hard. We're just trying to do everything we can to try and help people and give people the best information.
I think I just saw where New York has decided to send their students back to school live in person. Do you think Columbus will flex, or do you think they'll stay on the virtual path for the first half of the year?
Yeah, I'm not sure. My daughter is only 1.5, so we're not dealing with that quite yet. But also our education, the attorney that does education in our office was appointed to the Columbus City sort of task force thing. So I think she's got her pulse back on it much more. So that was good. I mean, it's nice. I'm glad we could have representation and sort of be in the know, because it doesn't seem like seems like a no-win situation for anyone. So,
Someone's
but
at the door. I'll be right back.
oh, okay, yeah. Landlords giving a second chance to those who are evicted. Um, you mean just not hold the eviction against someone? I think that's, I'm not sure. I don't think we have a list of good landlords. I think we only have a list of bad landlords, legal aid, unfortunately. Um, but I can, we do have a social worker, but I don't think he doesn't have a lot of, we put a lot, he goes to eviction court every day. Um, but I don't think I'm not sure he has a list of landlords doing that,
I've been,
unfortunately.
yeah, I've been given lists, but when you go through the list and folks, I haven't made it through all the lists yet, but um, a lot of seems to have changed. They say that they will take you, but they'll have a rule about what have happened within the last 10 years, 3 years, 5 years, and nobody's dealing with 2020. So, but that's okay. I still have lists to go through, but right now I'm in a temporary housing situation, which is um, to find a landlord or somebody who will say, hey, here's what's going on. This person is eligible and
Yeah. Yeah. And if, if people are thinking about bankruptcy, and evictions, but bankruptcy, it's hard for people to find new housing when they're in the middle of a bankruptcy, because a lot of landlords don't want to rent to someone in the middle of the bankruptcy, because they think they can add some rent into the bankruptcy, but that's not how it works. Because when you file a bankruptcy, it's your debt at the time you file. So if you then get a new landlord a month later, nothing's, the bankruptcy is not going to stop that. So that's one issue, that we have in the overlap. But I know evictions and finding new housing are probably the number one concern of people right now in this crisis. Um, and unfortunately don't have a lot of good things to say about it, but we recognize that that's the number one issue, and we're trying hard to get more funding and focus on it for people.
Do you have any input or insight on how Columbus maybe is preparing for future evictions? Like, are they working to build affordable housing units throughout the city, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't have any um, big insight, but I think they are, we have worked with them in some different capacities. Um, and I think they're aware of this, but I'm not sure. We were disappointed. They gave legal aid some money recently for more eviction attorneys, and which is great. Attorneys in eviction proceedings really help the outcome of somebody's eviction, but there's just so many people that just can't afford it, afford their rent, and it's not, and an attorney's not going to help that situation. So, hopefully we have a lobbying arm called Ohio Poverty Law Center, and they like lobby and meet with the city council and lobby the legislature more. So they're the ones that are really pushing for rent relief and, different things like that. So as just legal aid, I can't go and say you need to pass this law because of our funding restrictions. So they've got their pulse on it pretty closely and are trying to push for it a bit, with affordable housing. But I'm not sure of any immediate, post-COVID play like things besides just giving people one-off money. Like they did give Impact a lot of money for rent relief. But so I'm not sure how they're passing it out. Impact is if, people are having problems getting it from them. But they are getting money, Impact is, for rent
Mhm.
relief. So it would just, a lot of us think it'd just be helpful if you just gave people money to pay their rent instead of making it a little more um, complicated. But
There's a comment in the chat, affordability is key, and that is so true. I think just so many areas have been gentrified. So where before you were paying $500 a month for maybe a studio or one bedroom, now, you know, those same units in Old Town East are now going for like 950, eleven
mhm,
hundred a month. And
yeah,
I don't think that the income matches the accelerated rate of rental properties here in
no,
Columbia.
not at all. And there's way, we talk about affordable housing at legal aid so much, but there's also just a shortage of housing in general across the board in Columbus so much. So it kind of pushes people into different brackets and that kind of thing. But yeah, no, the rents are high. And I know when I file people's bankruptcies, I know most don't pay less than 7, 8, like 700 is an amazing deal. Right now. People mostly pay upwards of $1,000 for not that nice of places.
So expensive. When my
Mhm.
daughter moved out, I'm just like, wow, wasn't like this 20 years ago.
Right, right. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, but I know, wish I had better news, but I
Sure.
guess when you have a presentation called Dealing with Debt in COVID-19, it's not very positive.
Mm-mm.
So, well, I think you guys have my information. Yeah, there's my information. And, if you have any follow-up questions or, you know, anything like that, let me know.
Thank you so much for your time, Melissa. Thank you, ladies, for attending. Want to wish everyone a safe and healthy weekend. Get some
Mhm.
sun. It should be back with us and not at 90 degrees. It should be a beautiful
Yes,
weekend.
yes.
Yes.
It's beautiful looking.
Yes. Well,
Mhm.
thank you, ladies. I
All
will
right. Bye. Have a
see
good
you
weekend.
again. You too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Have a beautiful weekend.
You too, Angel.